All right. Here we go back again with another episode. Welcome to the other side of the coin, everyone. It's going to be a different flavor of episode, this one. Previous group discussions were more around the current affairs of Chelsea news within the last 24 to 48 hours. But as you all have seen in recent times, the news is just getting recycled and to the point where it's kind of getting boring, some of these news. So I thought, let's do something different that we haven't done as a group in a while, which is evaluating our youth players' performances this season. I think we've all tweeted here and there and created a lot of controversies in the timeline. We haven't really taken the opportunity to really sit down and talk about some of our youth players and how they've done so far. And I want to put a little bit more twist on it in this particular series by evaluating what the fans' expectations are for them next season, where they could improve, what they can continue doing, and basically how do we picture them to get there to what we expect. So as you can see, two fine gentlemen, my duo, these guys, honestly, every time I have them, I get views and views and views, and I'm loving it. I think the fans out there, the followers out there love this combination. They enjoy the topic and they enjoy, the opinions from these two lads. I've got Jay and Jonathan. Firstly, Jay, how are you, my man?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. And Jonathan, you've got the hat as well. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Hair's a mess. Barber is needed massively, but I've made up for it with the Essien top.
All right,
it's all good. It's all good.
Nice.
The Essien shirt, man. I love that. All right, boys, let's get this rock and rolling. Today's topic for everyone is Tomori. Jay and I, we were just speaking about it just before we went live. We were saying that not much has been talked about Tomori in the timeline. You don't really get to see too much about him. Every now and then you do see someone say, oh, yeah, he's a very good youngster. He needs to get more chance, daddy. And someone will reply back by saying, he needs to be loaned. He looked a little bit dodgy. So I'll kick it off a little bit and then I'll go to Jay first. My whole perception of Tomori's performance this season has been a bit up and down, I suppose. I think he didn't start straight away. Obviously, we had Andreas Christiansen and Zuma initially. We started off with, and that didn't work out that well. Quickly turned around because we were shipping so many goals, and then we started using Zuma and Tomori. And Tomori himself, yes, for me, he did have the on and off sort of mistakes per game. He did look dodgy at times, but he looked like someone who had the capacity to recover. He had this really good chemistry that was building with Zuma, and there was that streak, as you guys remember, of 6 or 7 games winning streak that we had, and they were the two mainstay centre backs that we had, and he was looking good. He had the physical attributes and he had the pace as well. He didn't look like someone who was fazed by this Premier League sort of stature, and he was looking good. And then, of course, Rudiger came along and everything sort of went a bit north for him. South, not north, south. So, firstly, I want to talk to Jay. How would you evaluate his season, in your opinion?
I really liked Tomori. He's one of my favourite players. I think we got him and Pulisic. I think are my two favourite players because he's only played 16 games. I think in the Premier League. I'm not too sure. I think it's around 15, 16 games.
15, yeah.
Yeah, 4 clean sheets. I think, which isn't great, but it's not necessarily his fault entirely. He scored a great goal. Bit lucky, but it's a great goal still. And he's also played 4 Champions League games and got a man of the match in one of those games as well. And actually, his overall rating is improved in the Champions League, even though the overall minutes are obviously lower. I think people need to understand that he's my age, right? He's the same age as me.
Wow.
And to be in a top 5 league is really difficult at this age. To be a defender in a top 5 league is even more difficult. And to be in the best league out of the top 5 makes it even harder. And being at a massive club in that big league means that you're constantly going to be scrutinised. Now, we did mention that he doesn't get talked about that much, but I think that maybe is a positive more so than a negative. I can't remember the last time I saw any sort of hate or slander towards him on social media.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to be a young centre-back, and it takes time. You look at Joe Gomez. Joe Gomez is a great centre-back, but you could argue that if there wasn't Van Dijk next to him, would he be as great? Maybe not. So you need to have a good partner alongside you when you're a young centre-back, which is when the Koulibaly links kind of make sense. And if Koulibaly or someone did come to Chelsea, I honestly would want Tomori playing next to him, because Tomori's the fastest player at the club. He is extremely athletic, very young. He's got an incredible amount of promise. He cut his teeth in the Championship, which is one of the hardest leagues in the world, and was their player of the season. Am I right? He was Derby's player of the season, which is fantastically impressive in itself for being even younger than he is now. And I've mentioned it a couple times I think I mentioned it on here before, maybe not directly to do with Tomori. I've mentioned it on other podcasts as well, that to be taken out of the side isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a sign of good management by taking a young player out of the limelight when things aren't going well, so they don't get a barrage of abuse from people that don't necessarily understand how the system's working and what it's like to be a player in that situation at that age. So for Lampard to take him out, to go for Zuma, who is more experienced, to go for any of the other 3 centre-backs are more experienced. So to go for them, to try and shore things up, Tomori can learn, train, he shouldn't. And Tomori doesn't expect to play every game. He's there to learn and play and slowly become ingratiated in the way we do things. So I think he's a massively promising player. I think he'd really benefit from having a top-level centre-back next to him, just so he can learn and be protected because mistakes are inevitable. But when you're a centre-back, your mistakes are more costly than if you're a midfielder, usually.
Yeah.
Because that's just the nature of the game, right? 15, 16 games in the Prem, 15. That's not bad for your first season at a massive club in the best league in the world. That's really not that bad. I know he played a lot at Derby, and Frank clearly believes in him. So we just need to trust the process. I think him not being spoken about is probably a good thing, more so than a bad thing, because I think everybody assumes that he's going to be there next season, that he is wanted by the majority of fans next season. There's no point in getting rid of him or loaning him, I don't think, because he can learn. And I think people are more accepting of mistakes for young defenders than they are maybe of young attackers, because they know how difficult defending is, and that the smallest mistake can lead to a goal, whereas attacking you have maybe a greater range of outcomes for mistakes. So I think Tomori looks like a really promising player. Next season he does need to kick on, because you want to see that his ceiling is really high, because he looks like a great player, but he could be a really, really good player. And I want him to demonstrate to fans and to everyone else that he looks like one of England's most promising centre-backs for the next decade. And I think that would be nice to see.
I want you to hold that thought about next season and how you think he doesn't need to be loaned, because there are fans, and I've seen some tweets and replies that don't truly believe in him and want him to be loaned out because they think it's a bit too early for him. But so I want you to hold that thought until we get into that conversation. Jonathan, what I want to ask you is, I had Matisse a long while ago, early in the season, and we were talking about these defensive flaws that we had. And I think it was during that time when we were going through the streak as well. Like, we were, as I said, we were still shipping goals, but it looked like there was some partnership that was happening between Tomori and Zuma. However, we both sort of said our team at the moment did not have any out-and-out world-class defender, as Jay was sort of pointing out. To us, it seemed like it was all secondary sort of level of defenders. So, as Jay was saying, having a world-class defender next to someone like Tomori, as opposed to Tomori and let's say Zuma or Andreas Christensen or Rudiger, how much difference would that make? I know in recent times we've been talking about that we need another CB. There's a few that have actually been saying that we don't. We're happy with what we have, and we've got Rudiger. There's a lot of people, as you know, they really, really like Rudiger. So what's your take on that situation, that we don't just only need another CB because of our defensive issues, but we need it because of players like Tomori?
100%. If we don't strengthen in the centre-back department, we will not get any better next season. And our biggest problem this season has been the goals that we've conceded. I mean, only in the last 10 seasons, I look back, we've only conceded more goals in 2 seasons, and we've only played 29 games. Now, we've had fantastic defenders in the past, but I'm just giving that as a reason to say we need to strengthen. So for a world-class centre-back to come in, or even just a more experienced one, he will help. I mean, Zuma and Christensen are a bit older, but they are still relatively inexperienced in the Premier League compared to what I'd want. So a big, strong, a dominating centre-back to come in to play with the likes of Christensen and Tomori will certainly help them, because the Premier League is a tough league, as Jay alluded to. It's not an easy one, and Tomori is helped by the fact that he is fantastically in terms of athleticism. He's really quick. He can recover the ball because of that. But as he gets older, he won't just be able to rely on that. So he needs to learn the other skills that will, help him in the long run. So he definitely needs a partner. I see Christensen and Tomori playing with a more dominating centre back, Zuma and one other. I don't see Zuma playing with, let's say, Koulibaly. I don't see Zuma playing with Koulibaly. He might do. I think Christensen and Tomori would complement him a lot more. But we have to remember, coming into the season, Tomori was 4th, 5th choice. It's only when David Luiz got sold that we thought, okay, he's part of our 4 centre-backs. I was very surprised when he came in and he started his first game. Lampard was talking about people training really well, being picked on form. Tomori came in, and between August and November, he played quite a few games. And we were all we're pleasantly surprised, because we're bringing more youth in. He looked okay with Zuma, don't get me wrong. He was building up a nice partnership. But there was always going to be a point where we were going to start to suffer as Chelsea's form dipped. That's always going to be, when the goals dry up, the emphasis on defending or the criticism was always going to increase. So, as Jay said, I think he got taken out of the limelight very cleverly by Lampard. I mean, played a few games in December, but since then he hasn't really been used. I mean, he's played a couple in the FA Cup, 4 games in the Champions League. So he's been used sparingly, but I think him being around a very talented squad will help him. And I think the reason people say about loaning is because when people do that comparison of keep, sell, loan, because we all most of us want Rudiger to go. So they go keep, sell, loan, Zuma, Christensen and Tomori. Then you will pick Tomori. But I just think it's a bit unfair. Not that he's not talked about very much, but when he is, I think he is a little bit disrespected, because he's got great passing ability. He can recover the ball, as I said, with his pace. He's very good at tackling. And the last point I want to make is, if you compare the 4 centre-backs this season, if you look at tackles a game, only Christensen is better. If you look at interceptions, only Zuma is better. If you look at pass completion, only Christensen is better. Clearances, that's the only thing he is bottom of the pile. And I think blocks as well. So in terms of, up against the other 4, he stacks up pretty well. So I've been fairly happy with him. And I hope he can continue that into next season, which we'll obviously get onto.
Yeah, no, fair point. 2 things I want to ask here. One, I'm going to ask you first, Jonathan, and then I want to ask Jay the other question. So the question to you, Jonathan, is that obviously he was dropped, let's say, in between. Once Rudiger sort of came back, he had an extended period where he wasn't playing that much. And then eventually he ended up getting a chance, or maybe there were a couple more chances before that. But the one that really sticks out for me is the one against Burnley, where he looked so bad in that game. And I remember tweeting after that game, and I was really backing him as well because I wanted to see Tomori start. I didn't want to see more of Rudy. I wanted to see Tomori start, and he did start. And that performance after that, I'm pretty sure you guys can recall as well. It was so horrific the way he defended. A couple of the goals were coming through his area as well. And I tweeted saying, these are the type of performance, like, you can have a bad performance, in my opinion. Yes, you can. But that was like a disastrous performance, like something that can honestly, I feel like, can shatter you for a little while. We've seen someone like Karius as the Liverpool keeper, what it's done for him in the Champions League final. He's never played for Liverpool since then. I don't even think he's actually going to play for Liverpool again. So how do you, a young player like him who's so eager to do well, and I think this lockdown has done good because it's taken the limelight away from all of that, which is great. But since that performance, he didn't feature again, and then we reverted back to Zuma and Rudiger. So how do you feel when a player goes through that type of a calamitous sort of performance? Surely fans will have some sort of question, right?
Possibly. I think if you then look at the complete highs of the season, though, against Ajax, he was absolutely superb, and he was an integral part of that 1-0 win away from home. So you will have highs and lows as a player. I mean, Abraham scored a lot of goals this season. He's missed chances. He's had his up and down. Mount's been heavily criticised despite him doing well. So I think as a young player especially, you will make mistakes. You will have bad games. But I think Lampard is very good in how he talks to his players to say, that's going to happen. You'll learn from it. As I say, he's taking him out of the spotlight. And he will only get better with a manager like Lampard, in my opinion. And I think he will understand that these things will happen. He spoke very well yesterday or the day before, I think, with Jamie Carragher on Sky Sports about him. He used to be a centre mid or midfielder, and his dad told him to be a centre back. So I think, and I say the way he talks, I feel like he's got the character and the personality to be able to grow and learn from those things. He's not the sort of player that's going to. I don't think he's a confidence player. He may look like it sometimes. Yeah, I think he's got a footballing mind. I mean, every time I see him, I feel like in the first 5-10 minutes, he's got one mistake in him. If it's a pass or it's a bit of a misjudgment. I feel like once he's got that out of his system, he's fine. I remember the Bournemouth game where he made a horrendous error in that 2-2 draw. And I was like, okay, that's his one error for the game. And I almost calmed down when he's got that error. Because he's so young, it's just like, maybe it's eagerness or something. I think that's where Chelsea fans, if it's early in the game, what's that again? So I just think we have to be patient. And as Jay said, it's not easy to be a centre-back in this league. When you're playing against some of the best strikers in the world, the movement off the ball from these players, you've constantly got to be aware. And I say he gets helped because of his fantastic pace. But it's about being positionally aware. I think he's got a footballing mind, so he will learn.
Now, second question, which is to Jay. One of the reasons I remember Frank coming out, he didn't direct this to any of the players, but we were all, I think the fans were all sort of complaining, well, what happened to the partnership of Zuma and Tomori? Why did that get broken up? And Frank didn't really blame any of those, but he did mention one thing. He said, I wasn't getting enough from those. Well, I wasn't getting enough from the defenders to move the ball quickly, more from defense to offense. There were too many sideways passing between the back. How do you get someone? Do you think this is because it's the first season? He's in the Premier League. He's a bit worried that he doesn't want to be too extravagant, but it's the style we play. He's got to really step into that and really believe what the manager wants him to do. How do you think he can sort of get out of that ideology that, I want to play safe?
Yeah, it just takes time. And remember as well, Lampard got rid of David Luiz, who's completing around 7 long balls a game, which is some of the best numbers in Europe, right? So to get rid of one of the best passing centre-backs in the world, which David Luiz is, he may not be one of the best defending centre-backs, but with the ball at his feet, he's brilliant. And to put in a young lad who's had to play at Derby, and Derby, no offence to Derby fans, but they're not going to play the most beautiful, expansive football because they're in a dogfight all the time because the championship's so difficult. You cannot expect a player to learn that skill that quickly. And the whole project is a marathon, not a sprint. it's pointless, in my opinion, analysing things like the Burnley game too much, because there's going to be another 10, 15, 20 games against Burnley soon over the coming seasons. And sometimes those games happen, and like Jonathan said, everyone's had poor games, everyone's had games that don't really reflect their ability. But Tomori will learn. And I think Lampard, when he stamps his style of play more so on the team over next season and possibly a season after, and Tomori can fill out a little bit more physically and can grow into his. He's quite a confident player. He's not a confidence player, but he's a confident guy. I think he's probably quite integral to the morale of the squad, because he's worked with Lampard as long as Mount has, and that's as much as any other player. That's more than any other player. He's good friends with people. He's clearly willing to learn, and I think it would take time. And perhaps maybe it's just not his style to be playing those passes all the time. And it is for Christensen. Christensen's a really, really good centre back in my opinion, and he's very calm with the ball at his feet, and he's able to distribute the ball willingly often. And sometimes I think people misunderstand, because we're in the era of and coming out of the era of tiki-taka football and high possession, and looking at what Pep Guardiola does and wanting to mirror that. Safety is not an insult. Safety is just safe, especially for a defender. To say a defender's safe is a compliment. However, there are times when he needs to spot the run of someone on the other wing and maybe learn to make that pass. But again, that takes time. That's a cultured way to play football that you have to learn. You either learn inherently through your academy, which Chelsea haven't done, because that's not their way. You'd learn it at Barcelona, for example. It's not necessarily the way you do it at Chelsea, which is fine. So he will adapt, he will overcome, and when he's surrounded by players that can help him with his passing, like Jorginho, Ziyech coming in. Everyone's seen the video of Ziyech's cross ball passes.
Yeah,
there's no reason why Tomori wouldn't say to him, can you take 10 minutes with me after training to show me how to do this? And I think he's the type of character that probably will do that. So yeah, it just takes time, and there are ideas around Tomori that I think anyway. When Aspi plays left back, Tomori's much quicker. There's no reason why Tomori couldn't play as an auxiliary fullback if needed. So when he develops that side of his game and he becomes a bit more comfortable with the ball at his feet and the limited time you get, because he'll be fine. Because you look at, I was thinking when Jonathan was speaking, when you were speaking actually, like how difficult it is to be a young defender in the Premier League. I was thinking of West Ham, right? West Ham is 16th. They haven't had a good season. Watford having a terrible season, but Troy Deeney, Seb Haller, that these strikers are brilliant. Troy Deeney is not a joke. He's actually a monster. And just because he plays at a lower team, like he will batter defenders. Because he has no respect. He's that type of player. Look at Seb Haller. He's 6'3". He was one of the best strikers in the world last season with Jovic. These players are lower down in this league.
Josh King as well.
Josh King, Callum Wilson. This is a theme throughout every other team. Even Everton, Richarlison is a crazy good striker. Calvert-Lewin, he bullies defenders. So it takes a lot of time and to fully develop into a physical athlete as a male. It won't happen until he's around 24, 25, where he reaches that sort of peak point of physicality. And as a centre-back, you just need to be... That's why we see centre-backs play usually longer than wingers, for example, because they fill into their role and they become confident and they know what they're there to do. And
like some of the best centre-backs are like around, 28, 29, 30.
Ramos is still one of the best. Yeah, PK is still one of the best. They're no joke, these guys. They're brilliant, and they're 30 plus. Hummel's 30 plus. He's still great. These are still top defenders that you would take at Chelsea now. Just because they're over 30, it's not a problem. John Terry, what was he, 33, 34 when he won the Prem with Chelsea?
Yeah. Last time was 36, I think, as well. So
there you go. So this is not, these are amazing defenders we're talking about, but there are loads of defenders that play into their mid 30s. Tomori's 22. Do you know what I mean? He's got 10, 15 years. And if all he's got to really do is fill out and work on his long passing and just the small technicalities of his game, that's fine. That's fine. Like, you know, diamonds can be smoothed. It's just the way it is. And I think he'll learn, and I think he's willing to learn, and I hope he just gets the time that I think he probably deserves, because to be a player of the season in the championship is a really big deal
It's a big deal.
Yeah,
100%. It's a big deal, man. It's not a small feat at all. I think it's timely. It's a good segue now into the next part of this Tomori discussion. I think the flavor that I'm getting from both of you guys and myself as well, this is what I believe is, I think he had a decent-ish first season. You know, for someone who's young in his first proper Premier League season, he's had a pretty decent season. And as you guys said, he's got most of the attributes. He just needs to work on a few things, which, you know, he's got time to work on that. You know, it is, as we said, some of the best defenders reach their peak level around the sort of mid to late 20s and then early 30s to mid 30s. So he's got a long way to go. Now, into the next part of this Tomori discussion, I'll go with Jonathan first up, is we've talked about his season so far. What is your expectation around Tomori next season? Knowing, I feel like we're still going to have 4 defenders. One's probably going to go, depending on if we buy someone or not. Even if we don't buy, I think we'll have 4 in the squad. Where do you see Tomori's future next season? Your expectations around this player?
I honestly think he can be an integral part of the team. I mean, I say, if we were to buy a big dominating centre back, I would instantly pair Tomori and Christian with him, and I would not rotate, but I would certainly try and bed them in with an experienced centre back. I think you can't forget Zuma. He's been probably our best defender this season, I would say. So it'll be very interesting, the dynamic that Lampard chooses, if he goes for 2 big, strong centre backs, if he goes for 2 more ball playing centre backs. So I honestly think that Tomori can be really important for this Chelsea team, and I say he will be complemented by someone who could just help him, you know, especially in terms of positioning. You know, I say he's got a lot of speed. Just, you know, if someone can be next to him or in front of him, like the Jorginho, etc. Maybe next time do that, or take that man, take this man. Because if you look at the defence this season, obviously with set pieces, we've not been very good with crosses, etc. I don't feel like the defenders or the centre backs are passing on the striker. The striker has decent movement, as you've seen for a lot of Chelsea goals. We've suffered. I don't feel like there's enough communication between the centre backs to say, you take him or you taking that. There's not enough passing of the striker. And if you're only playing against one striker, no, and that's why, in my opinion, we have to buy someone that is a leader, and that's why I'm kind of a massive advocate for it. So I think he just needs to improve in a few areas. One thing I think he needs to improve on is his aerial duels. He doesn't win enough. I think this is just the league. He's 34, he's won, 29 he's lost. Now, for a centre-back, that's not good enough figures for me. I want him to be a lot better. Just be a bit more confident in that aspect. To be, and this will come with filling out, as Jay said, him getting a bit stronger, him willing to go up against strikers, and just to win the header. Because again, balls coming into the box has been an issue for not just him but all of us. So the fact that he's not had any major errors leading to goal, that's encouraging for me. But I just think if he's paired with the right centre back, he can be a great member of the squad next season. But I do think he will be rotated with a Christensen, and then the other centre back will be, you know, whoever we buy, hopefully, and Zuma. So I just think he will play a little bit more than this season, I think, because hopefully we'll go further in competitions. But again, we need to have realistic expectations. He's not going to be a world beater in one more season. So we've got to be. I just want to see, like with Chelsea, a gradual progression. Him playing more games, him looking a lot more solid, him looking more like the centre back we want to see in going into his prime years.
I always throw a spanner of a question to you, and I've got one right now. Just for instance, we don't get a centre back. Let's just assume for a second that for some obscene reason we could not land a centre back, and we're left with the 4 that we had this season or have this season. What do you change around? You know, do you for next season go, you know what, I've had enough. You know, Frank just goes, you know what, I want more consistency. I can't have, 2 weeks of Tomori and Zuma, 2 weeks of Christiansen and Rudiger, 2 weeks of Rudiger and Zuma. I want to settle with someone. Do you see that settle with someone, Tomori being part of that?
Yeah, I believe we've used 9 different centre-back partnerships, whether that being a 3 or a 2. That is worrying for a side that is in 4th place. So that's not good enough, and that's another reason that's led to us being so questionable at the back. So if it was me, now I don't think Lampard would probably do this, because he's obviously got a bit of a liking for Antonio Rudiger. He must be
he likes it.
Backhand. I don't know what it is. So I'm not here to slate him. I just believe he is not the strongest of the 4. So if it was me, I would next season obviously reflect on the season that's gone by and go, what was probably our best partnership? And most people would probably say Zuma Tomori. So, that's up for debate. But I believe next season you go Zuma Tomori, Zuma Christensen, if the 4 centre-backs remain. And that's the future. And those are the ones that I believe can best equip us for next season. I mean, people might say it's inexperience, but for me, we want to see the team move in the right direction. And I believe that's probably those 2 or 3 are the best way to do that.
Fair enough. Jay, I definitely want to hear your expectations of Tomori, but I want to throw a different question, which kind of touched on just before we went live. We've seen quite a few people, whenever anyone sort of voices their opinion about Tomori, every now and then a few people come out and they say, oh, you got to be kidding. This lad's got to go on a loan. He needs to have a good loan spell somewhere else where he can play week in, week out, because he's still not up to that level to be, to elevate Chelsea to a level where we can start competing for titles. They don't believe Tomori is part of that plan at the moment. What do you say to that sort of, response that comes from fans? And then finish it off with, I suppose, your expectations around that player as well next season.
It's too late. There's no point. It's too late to send him on loan. You should have sent him on loan this season if you wanted to do that. We have 4 centre-backs. If you get rid of one, what are you going to do? You got 3, and one gets injured. Then what?
Yeah.
Then what? You're stuck. And what if you want to play 3 at the back? Well, you got to play all your centre-backs. It's silly. You can't do it. It should have been done this season if you wanted to do it. I think it was the right move to keep him in the first team. I think it is the right move to make sure he maintains his spot in the first team. I don't really see the value in loaning him out, because if you want him to be loaned out, so you'd want him to be loaned to a top club because he's a top prospect. Chances are he'll probably get more minutes at Chelsea next season than he would at a top club on loan. You look at what happened. Ampadu's barely played. He's at Leipzig, and you'd much. And I mean, Leipzig are having a good season, but you'd definitely rather play for Chelsea than Leipzig. That's just the way it is. Chelsea are a much bigger club.
True.
So there's no point. There's no point. You might as well just make sure he can develop in a setting that he knows, that he's comfortable with, surrounded by close friends and people that trust him and want to work with him and know his methods. He will develop better at the club than he would on loan. I just don't.
And it's a backward movement. I feel like a loan now would be a backward movement.
And it's not like when we sent Ruben on loan to Palace. He went to Palace because he'd been out injured and needed to get minutes, and he couldn't be guaranteed minutes at the club. Tomori doesn't really have a choice. He's going to play. He's going to have to play. That's just the way it is. If I could just quickly touch on the Rudiger thing, I don't think Rudiger's as terrible as some people do. However, I don't think we should start him. And Chelsea, as a financial way of looking at things, Rudiger's probably our most valuable centre-back, and he's probably the one that Chelsea fans want to play least. So it seems you might as well sell him because you'll get the most for him. And it would probably appease the fans slightly. I've said before, I think he could be used in a sort of swap deal. I think Chelsea should be trying swap deals more because they do happen. You see people saying no, it only happens on FIFA. It's not true. It happens in real life as well. It happens at a lot of lower league clubs, smaller leagues around the world. Doesn't mean it can't happen at top clubs. And we've seen it happen before. So Rudiger could be a really useful makeweight in that. And for Tomori, I'd like to see Tomori get 20 league games. Maybe like push 20 plus league games would be great. It'd be not. It'd be really good as well if he could get some international experience in friendlies and things like that.
Yes.
because that pushes him into another category. England,
different level.
Yeah, I don't think Southgate. I don't know if he chooses the centre backs that I would choose for England. Harry Maguire definitely has to start. He gets too much disrespect. Harry Maguire is brilliant. He is so good. People do not, because of his price tag, he does not get the respect. He is unreal. United have one of the best defences in Europe because of Wan-Bissaka.
Honestly, I've got no issues with Maguire. I don't know why he gets so much. I think it's because he's a United player, and
80 million as well. United. Yeah, of course. Yeah. But if Tomori could get some time next to Maguire, that would probably be quite beneficial. So for him to go into the England camp, he can speak to Gomez. I'm sure they're probably friends or know each other anyway. Gomez has been learning off Van Dijk, who is currently the best centre back in the world. So he can learn from all these different areas, and he just needs to make sure that he stays in the top circles, and he's in the international discussion, that he's constantly pushing for starts, that he's knocking on Lampard's door, being like, "Look, I've been doing this and this. I'm ready. And I think he is like that. So let's make sure he gets a decent amount of minutes. It's been brilliant to see that he's had experience in the Champions League, because to get minutes at that age in that position in the Champions League for a big club is pretty unheard of. I can't think of many centre backs that have done it. Varane, Joe Gomez. And these are good De Ligt, and these are good centre backs. He's in good circles there because not many do it. So let's just hope that continues, and the technicalities of his game can be worked on in training, and I'd like to just see him become more of a confident, more relaxed and composed player, because when he's composed, he's great, and he's so quick. He's not very short. He's 6'1", so that's fine.
Yeah.
It's not the tallest. But being that athletic and that pacey, he might actually be able to work on getting into the air and winning these aerial duels. But that will come with strength as well. That takes time for any player to develop physically. So I think he's looking really promising. I think 20 plus league games. If we're in the Champions League next season, let's see him play in the Champions League as well. Let's see him push for some international starts. I don't want him just in the team. I think he should be starting, although England do have good centre backs that maybe get slightly overlooked, such as Tarkowski, for example, at Burnley. I think he's a really good centre back. That should probably play for England a bit more. Gomez, Maguire, so that he could push it, because I don't really want Kyle Walker as a centre back as an England fan. I just don't. And
I think he could be ahead of Jones, so he could be in the 4. Stones, sorry, not Jones. Stones.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Stones is
finished. Yeah.
Value. Yeah, I think he's.
I like Stones, man. I actually do like Stones. I think he's a really good player.
I think he's a good. Again, he's a ball player, more of a ball player. I don't see him in the England setup too much longer. So I think that's the spot. I think that Tomori can. No disrespect against Stones. Yeah, but.
He should be taking Stones' spot 100%. There should be like 3 main centre backs for England, and I think it'd be Maguire, Gomez, and one other. And I think Tomori should be eyeing that spot and thinking, do you know what, I've got this, because I probably play more than most. Maybe not so. He won't play as much as Dunk or Tarkowski, but he's playing for a better club. He's playing Champions League. Yeah. So to have all these things going on, he just needs to keep going. He's not really doing anything wrong. He's just a young player playing when he can. And that's why he doesn't get spoken about much, because he actually doesn't really do anything wrong. He's perfectly...
Goes under the radar.
He goes under the radar. He's great when he speaks to the media. He's very articulate. He clearly loves the club as well, which is a big thing for us as fans, because we've had lots of players that come because we offer good wages. But Tomori's been here for a long time.
You can definitely see his desire. When he plays,
exactly.
You can see the desire, big time,
bro. And he's friends with the people that are beginning to form the spine of the club, and if he slots into that area as a centre back that we have for the next 5-10 years, that's great. And also, if we take our emotions out of things and look at it as a way that Marina would, look at it from a financial aspect. If you're another team now and you wanted to buy Tomori, how much are you going to pay? 30, 40, 22-year-old England international centre-back that's got Champions League experience, that plays for a top 4 club, that's also come off the back of being the player of the season as a defender, which is rare for a big championship club. you're going to look at 30 plus mil. He was not worth that at the start of the season. So he's adding to his game, but he's also adding
100%.
to the club. He's not really doing anything wrong. Yeah.
His equity. I tweeted something like this recently where I said there's so much disrespect sometimes it shows to these youth players. What we fail to forget is all the deadwood that we've bought and all the losses that we're incurring from these deadwood players. These youth players are not only they're playing well, but they're building equity for the club. You know, someone like Mount, someone like Reece James. You know, these were zero transfer pounds. That we didn't spend anything, and they're now worth. You know, Mount, how much would he be worth? Like 30, 40 at least?
I think if you have if you were to sell Tomori, Reece James, Mason Mount, and Tammy, you'd be pushing close to 200 million.
Yeah.
Because if you're asking for 90 for Lautaro Martinez, Tammy puts up the same numbers in a better league, in a worse side. So, and he's an England international. You look at how much Ben Chilwell is being rumoured for 70, 80 million. You're joking. Tammy Abraham, if Ben Chilwell is worth 80 million, Tammy Abraham is worth 120.
Yeah.
Not
by those figures,
yeah, exactly, by those figures. Realistically, he's not. But I think if you were to sell those 4 players, you're going to be close to 200 million. That's unreal. That's unreal for 29 games that have been played in the season. Your club value is now increased by that much because of these players that are also doing well for the team. It's great.
Honestly, people forget this so much. They need to, and these are the things. And I know you two boys. Every time you'll see me frustrated every now and then in football Twitter, where I see so many generic crap just being tweeted. And these are the kind of tweets that we really need to see, where people think outside the box and go, "Hey, wait a second! Before you smash some of these youngsters, think about the value they're putting into the club." So,
definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, before I end this particular evaluation of Tomori, I feel like we've got a lot out of this, and I'm hoping the viewers get a bit more understanding of Tomori. What I want to ask both of you guys to end it off, and I'll start with Jonathan first, is Jay sort of alluded that players like Tomori and Tammy and Mason Mount and Reece, they'll form the backbone of our team for the future. Do you 100% believe this in the case of Tomori being one of our mainstays down the track and probably emulating something like what John Terry has done for years and years for Chelsea?
I believe he can do, especially under the tutelage of Lampard, who clearly is going to trust his players. I think when you have that trust and belief in a manager, it really does go a long way. So, for the likes of him, for James, for Mount, for Tammy Abraham, just those 4 that have kind of appeared this season, I see them as being an integral part for years to come, for the next decade. Being those names that you just, every time you turn up to a game or you watch it on the TV, you go, this is the 7 or 8 that we're going to see today, minimum, that you're guaranteed. Because that's what we used to have in title winning years gone by. You used to, under Mourinho onwards, because Mourinho was a bit of a tinker man. So Mourinho onwards, you'd go, this is your 8 or 9 every week, pretty much that's going to play. Maybe a winger might change. Maybe a midfielder might change because we have 3 or 4 kind of switching players. So you'd know your team. And as I said about Chelsea this season, especially defensively, we've changed too much. If you've got a solid team that you know is going to play, it's a lot easier for everyone to get to know each other and to form a bond. So I see them as an integral part. I believe Lampard will trust him, and I think he deserves that. And I hope next season we kind of see the start of a new dynasty. Or dynasty, whatever the word is for Chelsea. So.
I think it's dynasty, but yeah, that's all right. Jay, I'll let you finish it off. Do you also believe that Tomori is going to be someone, he may be maybe a rotational CB, maybe start 20 league games as you're saying, but we'll make it rotated with another senior CB, but down the track, he will be our senior man, and he will be, the fans will be screaming for his name to be in the team street first up. Is that how you feel as well about Tomori?
Yeah, I think so. I think a couple of points to mention briefly, just because we know what Chelsea Twitter's like. We forgot to mention Gilmore and Hudson-Odoi. If you sell them as well, we're going to be close to 350 million in 2 seasons' time. If we keep all these players, they're all going to be worth around 600 million, which is obviously crazy. And just a brief thing, I'm happy to leave it as sort of a thing for viewers and you guys to think about. But if I was Lampard and if I was maybe Mourinho or any of the other hierarchy, I would be going to Aston Villa and I'd be knocking on John Terry's door and I'd be saying, "Do you want to come and help coach?" Because why would you not? And how could John Terry turn it down? I know that he's got more. He's assistant manager at Villa, great, but
yeah.
Villa are going to be in Championship next season.
I don't understand how he's not here yet. I honestly don't understand how he's not.
I think he's learning his trade. To be honest.
Yeah, definitely, he is. But if you could get him in as a defensive coach, that's almost cheating. He's in my opinion, he's the best English centre back of all time.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the greatest Premier League centre back ever. Think how much you can learn from him, and he's still under 40. He's definitely capable of getting on. John Terry could probably still play professional football now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, honestly, he could have. He really could have.
Yeah, he definitely could. Maybe not in the Premier League.
Have you seen his physique lately? He's still in top shape.
He's calm. He just doesn't need to because he's won everything. So maybe that's a possibility, but I do think Tomori will be a part of what we have. I think it's really important to have a centre back as one of the key players as a side develops, and I really hope that he can be that player because I think he's so likable. He's very personable. He plays with a smile on his face, which is really nice to see. He loves the club, loves the players within the club. So yeah, I do believe that he can fulfill that potential. He's probably not got the same ceiling as someone like Reece James, just because Reece James looks so good, or Gilmore, who looks unbelievable in the limited minutes he's played. But Gilmore's a different conversation.
Yeah, Gilmore. We'll leave it. We're going to be back for Gilmore. Don't worry.
But I think Tomori can hold down that spot, and I think give him till he's 25. When he's 25, you'll know. And that's obviously, that just relies on everyone being patient, but I think it should be fine. I think he'll be great.
Brilliant. Look, guys, thank you so much. I honestly feel the same way as you guys. I was basically trying to play the devil's advocate to get a bit more sort of information from both sides. I think, look, at the end of the day, what we sort of summarized is that, he's young. He's had a decent season. Yes, he's made mistakes. Let's not hold it against him because it is a tough league. But, he doesn't have a lot to develop on. He's got a few things that he just needs to work on and really, really hone in on that. But it's not like he doesn't know defending at all. He knows a lot of it. And as both of you guys have alluded that, it's not a small feat at all to be player of the season for Derby last season. And you don't generally see a defender be player of the season. So, this, and we've talked about his desire as well for Chelsea. So, look, I think the bottom line is Tomori is here to stay. So fans better get used to it and better start backing him. So until next time, we will be back tomorrow with another episode with another fresh youth prospect. And we will evaluate that player once again. Until then, have a very, very good day wherever you are. See ya.